So, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining me on this webinar where we're going to be sharing all about how we can attract, retain, and maximize the performance of our people. And really, the hospitality industry at the minute is struggling to attract people in. And there's a lot of changes that are going on around, well, in the world, isn't there, that are impacting how many people actually want to or see hospitality as a future career. So this webinar, workshop, whatever you want to call it, is all about how we can do better as an industry to bring people into a space that is the most fun and engaging and rewarding industries for people to work in. So very quickly, a little bit about me, and you'll probably already know a little bit about me if you've been or listening to the Cafe Hustle. But so I am the host, the creator of the Cafe Hustle podcast, and that started off as something that I wanted to give back to the industry. We had our cafe for about 3 years, and the stories that I'd heard from my staff, but also the struggles that I went through, the challenges, it was all around how we could share, the ideas and the strategies that other people in the industry are using to better help smaller operators, bigger operators, you name it. But my real passion is leadership and realizing the power of what leadership can do to an organization, whether you are a single operator, single site operator, or you're a multi-site operator nationwide. Leadership can have a massive impact on the performance of a business. And I come from about 15 years of various leadership roles, experiences, well, set up differently, basically. So whether I was influencing or leading upwards, leading people who I didn't automatically have a line or a chain of command. And over that time, I've built up this repertoire of techniques and almost tools, really, to help me lead people differently. But really, and I've got the purpose there now, is what the Cafe Hustle has become, is about helping the hospitality leaders of today and tomorrow thrive through my sharing of intentional leadership skills. And we're going to get into really what intentional leadership is, because really, as business owners, we are de facto default leaders anyway. We have influence over the people that we are employing, but really some people, well, they don't always approach that from the point of view that actually this position we have, this status, is a really important tool in delivering our goals of what we want from our business. So leadership can't be passive, and that's the crux of what leading with purpose is. It's always got to have that intention. So we can't be sat back and say, okay, we're telling people to do this and that and getting jobs done that way. We always have to create that connection. And being a leader is about a relationship and how we can continue to develop that relationship to work towards our goals as business owners, and that satisfies us as individuals, but also the people that are working with us to take the business to that position. And really what it is it's about that vision that we have and working towards that. And a big part of that is how we attract people to our business, how we retain people in our business, and then maximizing their performance. Really, and I've said it multiple times on the podcast, we can't achieve what we do in our business without the people that work in it. We can't generate the revenue without the people that work in it. No, obviously we still could. And even if we were in a position of one person, i.e. you as an owner, running the business, you could generate some revenue, but we'll never reach the potential of the business without the actual people that are our workers and working in the business with us day in, day out. So when we talk about leading with purpose, and really it's about which purpose we are leading from. So intentional leadership has many purposes, whether it's the business goal, whether it's personal development, whether it's your own personal goals that you want to achieve, or whether it's customer experience, there's always a purpose behind what we do and how we lead our people. And ultimately, and again on the podcast, I've spoken about this a lot because I think it's really undervalued, but our values, our mission and our vision are really the center point of what our leadership is. So when we talk about leading with purpose, and I've summarized it here on this slide, it's about leading and delivering on our mission, working towards our vision, and encouraging behaviors in line with our values. Now, we'll get into what those elements are in a second, but we must be able to align all our purposes, whether they're business related, people development, customer experience, they all get aligned by using our values, our mission, and our vision. So again, at the bottom there, a little quote there: nothing happens in our business without great leadership. And something that I've spoken about before is that people undervalue the impact that leadership can have on the performance of their business. I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but everything that we do is impacted by the leadership that we employ in our business, whether it's you as an owner, whether it's a manager that you've put in place. The leadership skills of those people impact the performance of the business and they impact the goals. Certainly in smaller coffee shops, we could almost go into them thinking, like, we've got to generate revenue, and that is the only focus. And yes, we have to have the revenue to have the cash flow to keep the business going. But again, none of the development, none of the performance, none of the service or the customer experience happens without great leadership. So that's really important to remember. People say to me, do you think there's a need for leadership development in certainly the coffee shop element of the hospitality, but hospitality in general, because people tend to think it's not the first, the primary driver of what they do. But my counter argument is absolutely leadership and how you lead your business changes the performance of that business and ultimately reaching your goals as an owner. So the first part of what we were talking about there is how we attract people, and hospitality at the minute is in crisis, certainly in the UK, and we have different elements that are impacting how we are attracting people. But the pandemic as well worldwide has impacted the amount of people that want to work in hospitality. So your reduced labour supply there is people that have either maybe been in hospitality or have known about hospitality and maybe have seen a different side of what they want from work that they haven't necessarily had from hospitality in the past. And we have to remember we're now about adapting to the needs of the workforce. So again, the UK, we're not only just dealing with that, we also have the impact of Brexit, of nearly 300,000 people having to move back or out of the UK back to Europe, for example. So we are literally dealing with a shrinking supply of labour. Now, point 2 on that slide is something that is becoming more to the forefront of what people are talking about nowadays, is this purpose element. Now, the new or the younger generation coming through that are just coming out of school, coming out of college, looking for work, are now looking for more of a purpose. And this is not something that is necessarily new to our industry. It's the same for every industry, and it's always really been the case to a lesser extent now. But I think the older generations, maybe millennials or older, that have been working in hospitality, the pandemic has almost changed how they view things, and they now want to be in a position where they want more than just the money. It's about having a reason for why they are doing a job. I know I've joked with managers in the past when I've been working for other people, and they laugh when they call me the question king, because I always need to know why we do something. I say that in a jokingly way, but I like to know the reason behind why we do something as an organization, wherever that is. And it's the same for our people now. They need to know what purpose they're serving beyond just serving great tea, great coffee, or great service wherever you are in any hospitality. And our industry, I think, needs to change now, because we can't carry on the way we were before the pandemic because it clearly isn't working. And don't get me wrong, again, we're not the only industry that's suffering, but the reality is, without the people in our industry working for us, we cannot thrive. We cannot generate that revenue. Other industries are now adapting and being innovative and going to more of an AI or an automated approach to how they run their business. But from a hospitality point of view, yes, we can do that to a certain extent, but we can't go so far as losing that human connection. Again, the bottom point on this slide is, although people are now driven by their purpose and wanting to be part of something bigger, we can't lose sight that salary and wages are still the number one consideration when it comes to people choosing a job. And something I'll mention later on, but I'll touch on it now, is our industry doesn't tend to put the salary expectations or the wage range on job adverts. And really, certainly me, the first thing that I look at beyond, wanting to know what the ins and outs of the job are, is will the salary support my needs as an employee, regardless of the purpose? So we still need to make sure that we're considering that and being upfront about what the expectations are. What are we expecting to pay for someone working in this role, a lower end and a top end? And I can guarantee just that on its own will start to create more interest in your job adverts. So how do we attract people? Now, in the past, it's a case of very much just putting an advert out there and, people would apply because it was an employer's market. There was plenty of people out there needed the work. And now we are competing with so many other industries offering so many a different variety of experiences as an employee. But also we've got the pandemic to consider. So we've had people who were working in hospitality have left and they've seen what they can do away from hospitality. So say, for example, during the pandemic, they went to deliveries. Just as an example, they were working 8 till 4:30, maybe, depending on where they are. They were probably getting paid more than hospitality could support at that point in time. Haven't had split shifts, haven't had all the problem customers to deal with. And we now have got to change and adapt and show people how they now could have what they want, but within our industry. So we're now marketing to not only customers, but our employees as well. We have to be out there and say, how can we be beyond what we were before? And this comes back to how we develop that organizational purpose. Now, we have to, again, the values, our mission and our vision are what create that purpose. They create that connection between the employee and what they want, and actually what do we deliver as an organization. So again, coffee shops, we don't just deliver great coffee or great food. We deliver great experiences. We deliver a great community hub. And as much as we can paint this picture for our people, our employees, the greater their connection is to that purpose. They know where we're wanting to go as an organization. And that creates an intrinsic motivator to them. So not only doing that for our employees, but also people who haven't actually yet applied to our business. And really, it's about creating that an emotional response. So we can have, in the past it's saying, we've got this job here, we'll pay you this much, come and work for us. Now, people are being a lot more selective, and we need to be, when I say that emotional response, it's about creating a feeling in someone. So they see a job advert, they see our social media posts. We need to create that feeling that they want to work for us, or conversely, they don't want to work for us. A lot of people are dealing with candidates that are putting applications in that aren't actually following through. So they have an interview date, they don't actually turn up for it. Seem really keen on phone calls, but actually when it comes to it, they're not following through. And this again comes back to that emotional response. We need to, at the job application point, but be creating a real need for people to either want to apply or not. So job descriptions. This is really important now that we are bringing our values and our mission into the job description phase so people can see that we are purpose-based. There's more to what we do than just the coffee and the interacting with the customers. We're creating that third space almost. I know Starbucks have tried to do that. That's always been their mission. But certainly independents have got a lot more control and a lot more power when it comes to creating a third space. It's like bringing people into our living rooms. And like I say, their mission and values have to be central to that application, making people realize, do they fit into that purpose? Are they the person that is demonstrated or has been set out by our values? And again, we're having that added value of filtering candidates out at that stage. Again, pay range has to be on there. That's really important for people. It's going to be the first barrier for people not even to apply if there's no wage expectation on there. So we need to really make sure that we're doing that. So again, actions for this stage is how can you define your list of 6 to 8 values. You go on to maybe Pinterest or anywhere on there, you can find these comprehensive lists of values, just the words, and it'll give you an idea, give you some inspiration of what fits for you and your business. Don't forget, when you are defining your values, you as an individual, as an owner, have to have that as, they have to be consistent with your own values. So don't be choosing things because they think they fit right. Make sure you're bringing in genuine, authentic values to be able to use in your business. The next stage is not only to have a list of values, but also to have a sentence for each that demonstrates the behaviors that come along with that value. How do we embody, how do we personify these values? And this makes it clear for people to see when they're reading your job description, or even, your policy document that has this in, this is what is expected of me. And this is where we're starting to build that emotional response to say, yes, that is me. I fit this role. I do believe in those values. I'm the right person for this role. And on top of that, we then have our mission. So write a statement about how your business fills a bigger need than just, the coffee and the cake or the food that you give your customers. What other things are you adding to their lives that keeps them coming back? Again, base it on your values. It's got to be supported by the values. Your values are your starting point. But then this is where this is what our purpose as a business is in that mission statement. Again, it's about creating that emotional response when someone reads your job advert. Your vision, really, and again, we're using these words, values, mission, and vision, but your vision is really nothing more than your goal. Where does your business, what's the next stage for your business? So include that in there as well, because that makes or helps people see where the business is going. And also your social media, start to show the fun and the human side of working for your business. Show the people who are delivering the great things behind the scenes. Share some recipes that, your grandmother passed down. Don't necessarily share your exact recipes if they're secrets as such for your business, but it gives, you're sharing more. People are seeing the people that are behind the experience when they come into a shop, and then that is, again, makes people want to start to work or want to at least apply to work in your business. Now, another really important part for us as an industry is retaining people. Like, we've got a huge movement in the UK with Mark McCulloch and Hospitality Rising, all about how we can attract people back and see the benefits and the fun of working in hospitality, but without actually retaining them and doing the work in the background where, this funnel is bringing people back in. We can't then afford to lose them to maybe going off to other industries because they'll never come back to hospitality after that. But we also can't have, as selfishly as individual businesses, we can't have people moving on to other businesses. It costs money to train people. We end up having inconsistent service in our business. But a really important part of that retaining of people is that our promises that we've done in the previous step, in that job advert, the job description, setting our purpose, they have to be consistent when we come into work for you. The last thing we want is giving these people these great big promises of, you'll have these great opportunities in our business. We're very mission driven. Our culture is formed by our values. For them to come in and then see something different is really going to be the first, it's going to be in a matter of days that people are going to realize, actually, this is not what I was promised. This is not where I want to be. And that's the starting point of where we could start to see people leaving the business again. But a really important thing to consider is, what do our people want or need? We're not only there to provide, again, a purpose for people to work towards and, money for them to live off. Yes, they need that. And that's, again, it's one of the most important parts. But we have to know what they are after. What is it from a job that they are looking for that will keep them coming back into your business every day, working 100% for your customers, for you? What is it that they need to allow them to keep coming back? And I know we go on about it a lot, about the employee experience, but it's becoming more and more important. People need to feel more and more valued, and if we don't, we're going to lose them again from that point of view. But really, the big part of what we do as an industry is creating cultures in our businesses. That's what really people want to belong to. They want to stay part of. In our business, I remember one of our members of staff said, it's like a family. And we can't treat it purely like a family because it's a business and it's an employee relationship fundamentally. But really, you have to create this environment where people want to be and want to be belonging to. And again, your values and your behaviors that underpin them are what creates your culture. Creating a place where people can be safe, aren't worried about making mistakes, and as a result can then thrive. That's the main thing. They don't want to be managed by someone who treats them or disrespects them, and they need to feel like they're in a place where they are happy, can continue being happy, and that's what will keep them working for you. So we talk about what they want. How do we find out what it is they want? And one of the most difficult things I find with owners and managers or leaders in any position is actually engaging with the people and asking them what they want. I know there's been roles that I've been in and initiatives have come out and you start to think, well, actually, where have they came from? Where have these ideas come from? Because they never actually engage with the staff to find out what they actually need. Now, for example, in your coffee shop, in your hospitality business, do your employees have the tools that they need to do their job effectively? If there's something that they could, or someone has an idea of adding to what they have to use to allow them to serve the customers better, to make their job easier? Is it a workflow issue? Your team are very knowledgeable in what they are doing on a day-to-day basis. They're there, they're engaging with customers, they know what does and what doesn't work, both from their point of view and an employee a customer point of view. So tap into that. Literally, it is a case of saying, hey, how are you today? Is there anything you need? Is there anything we could do differently? Let me know. And I can guarantee, really, as well, from a job point of view, we can throw these ideas like we've got listed out on this slide. I can guarantee some of them will be included in, but unless you actually ask, you will never know, and you'll never actually be able to tap into what it is that people are needing from your business. So a few examples here, and this is another example of how things are changing now in certainly for hospitality. People are looking for more flexibility, both with work and their benefits. Certainly, if you're a bigger employer and you've got a range of benefits you can offer, consider giving your employees the option. Do they want extra additional leave days? Do they want, I don't know, more flexible working, like a flexi time within reason? Because obviously it's not as easy as that in hospitality. But these are the sorts of ideas of where we should be going to create a better work environment for our people when they come to, again, deliver the vision that we have as a leader for our customers. Another thing that really is underused in hospitality generally, and again, this is from our staff, and if you've listened to the podcast, I've shared a story about this before, is appreciating the work that they do. Even if, and I know this is going to sound really strange, even if all they have done is shown up, because they've given their time, regardless of how productive they are, they've given their time to come into the workplace. And there's lots of things that goes on in our people's minds day in, day out that alters how productive they are. But merely by just every day when they're leaving, just say, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. They then start to see that what they do, again, even if it's just turning up, is appreciated. And that momentum, if you start doing that, will start building a more loyal workforce, a more trusting workforce, and one that will respect you as their leader. One of my team said to me one day when they were leaving, why do you say thank you every day? Because I made an effort of doing that every day. And they asked why I did that. And it was genuinely because I appreciated the work that they did. We couldn't serve the customers we did. We couldn't turn out the food that we did without them being there, doing the work, interacting with the customers. So why not say thank you? And they said to me they've never had that appreciation, never felt as much as appreciated as much as they do when they're working for us in their entire life, which really hit me. And it really shows you the power we have as leaders. But again, there's other things on that list like paying competitively, personal development and growth and promotion if they want it. Remember, not everyone wants it. And leaders in leadership positions, that point, again, it's easy to promote maybe the most technically proficient person, the one who is the most competent in doing their job, say, for example, a barista. The best barista doesn't necessarily make the best head barista. We need to now shift from looking at experience and skills and looking more at the leadership skills and making sure we're actually putting leaders who have a basic understanding of what leadership is into those leadership positions and hiring people that are aligned with our culture. Right now, it's really easy for us to get into a position where we want to employ the first person that comes through the door because that's the position we're in. But I would argue that our culture takes weeks, months, years to build up, and it can be destroyed or broken within a matter of weeks, days even, if we employ the wrong people. So make sure that we're employing people, again, that are aligned with our values and can demonstrate the behaviors of those values. It really, I can't stress it enough. That's a really important point, is that we are bringing, your culture is the most sacred thing in your business. Keep a hold of it, protect it as best you can. And to do that, it's about bringing the right people in that don't necessarily, it's not about trying to make people fit in. It's about bringing people in who are already a good fit for our culture. So actions for retaining people, starting tomorrow or today, even if you're in your business now, head over and say, right, what is it you need from an operational point of view first and foremost, but also ask the question about from a job, from an employment point of view, what do they need from a role? What is it they're looking for? And no doubt you will get some quick wins. For example, if it's about, moving one piece of equipment, consider how easy that is and do it, because you can't necessarily just trundle on with these ideas. We've got to take action. And again, from a leadership point of view, if we're taking action on what people are bringing to us, we're becoming more trusted. There's a lot of things to benefit, but certainly if you're delivering on the things that people are saying that they need, certainly the quick wins, do that and do it as quickly as possible, because that will really build the momentum, start to change how people trust you. Again, have a look in your business how you can change and become more aligned to other industries. I know it's not always as easy, but can we drop split shifts? Can we stick to sub 40-hour work weeks? Certainly for a coffee shop point of view, can we stick to maybe a 9 to 5? It's not always as easy as that, certainly for other elements of hospitality. So there's constraints that we have to work in, but where in your business can you become more flexible and compete more with other industries? And then again, be intentional about who you add to your team, particularly your managers, particularly your leaders. We have to make sure that we are nurturing our culture, removing the people who aren't necessarily the best fit, maybe putting them into a different role, or, whatever that is. We need to be really protective about that culture. Now, this is another thing that we in hospitality have, I don't know, is it the nature of it that's brought this on, but we create dependent cultures. We have a hierarchy, the traditional hierarchy, that pyramid, and it tends to create a dependent culture. Throwback to an episode with James Gray of Barista & Co, and they were talking about a flat hierarchy. They had no hierarchy. And what that does is allows people to start thinking for themselves and to, in a way, align. Do our standards, or am I meeting my standards? Is that how we're moving the business forward? But what you get in hospitality is people come to you constantly, quite often with the same question. And I know I've had this experience before, not in hospitality, but coming to you with the same questions over and over again, and you're giving them the same answer. So this now is, how can we change that from a dependent culture or a dependent workforce to one that is independent, thinks for itself? And are we providing the challenging growth? Again, it comes back to retaining people. Are we providing the challenging growth that people are looking for from us and employees? And part of that is coaching as a leader to help give you more time and focus on revenue generation, on marketing, on recruitment, all of these things that are happening that are not day-to-day operational. You're focusing your time on, whereas if we can create an independent culture that is able to think for itself, independent workforce that thinks for itself, then we can do a lot more as leaders. So start to think, is your team dependent on you? You need to develop their critical thinking. So really what this is, and it's not about, having people that can necessarily have to go through a whole coaching session. That's not what I'm advocating at all, because in hospitality, we have to adapt to the realities of what running a hospitality service is like. It's fast-paced, hectic. Quite often it's controlled chaos, certainly for the back of house, and anyone looking into a kitchen in hospitality, who isn't in hospitality would think that there is just chaos. And we have to adapt a coaching approach to that scenario. It's too easy when people just come and say, oh yeah, I've got this problem, what do I do? And we give them the answer. So it's not a traditional coaching relationship as such. It's not about us sitting down for an hour with someone and trying to explore all the areas. It's really about starting to get them to think. So asking a few questions. So for example, what do you think is the best way of dealing with it? How do you think the result will pan out? What are the possible outcomes? And by doing this, you're starting to get people to think critically and to think on the fly. As a hospitality business, like I say, we haven't got time to go through this and get people to test things. So we do have to add in about, some advice, because coaching traditionally is about not giving advice, not giving that mentorship that some people need, But in hospitality, I think it needs to work a little bit differently, unless you're specifically setting time to sit down with, say, a manager to develop their skills, where in a more formal way, where you would then take that traditional approach of exploring things with them. And there's so many benefits to doing that, and the development possibilities are much higher. So if you can do that for your leaders, do that. But we're talking on a day-to-day basis with all our employees, try to get them to think a little bit differently. But there's also other things that we can do and are really important that we can take from coaching and bring into our general day-to-day leadership. The first one is active listening. Now, a lot of people hear when people talk, especially if we're busy, we've got so many things on our mind. We don't necessarily see the benefits or have the time to even to listen properly. So active listening is all about really focusing on what someone is saying to you, the information that they're giving you. And a really important part of the technique of active listening is to make sure you understand what they're saying, is to repeat back what they've said to you. So really take that time to stop and listen. This again builds connection with our employees. We can't go day to day not interacting with our people. We have to engage with them, and this does that. This helps you do that by bringing in that ability to allow them to feel heard and to build that connection. Again, we have to adapt it to the hospitality setting in that it's fast paced. So this can't happen over maybe 10, 15 minutes unless, there's a specific issue that you're going to sit down with someone on. This is in short burst, micro engagements with your people, but getting them to one, give you the information better, but you to actually, absorb what they're telling you so you can then use that to make better decisions. You're asking those questions to get people thinking. Also consider what they're not saying. So often someone can bring you, and certainly I see this with people who I've coached in the past, is that they can talk around an issue, but actually there's a lot of things that they're not saying. So for example, say there's a new opportunity for someone to go into a new role, or, and they're asking your advice. They're talking about, oh, it's a great thing for me, I need to be in this role. But actually, what's the reason for them, for that enthusiasm? Is there an issue in their current role that, as a coachee, they should actually really be dealing with? But also, in the hospitality setting on a day-to-day basis, we're looking for things that people aren't necessarily understanding. And again, if we can draw their attention to it, it allows their decision-making to be better. They can then get to the point where when they come up with a similar situation in the future, they can just actually think through it themselves and go, actually, got to take this action. You as a leader have to absolutely give them that rope to be able to do that, give them a little bit of free rein, allow them to make mistakes as well. This is really important because that's where a lot of the learning happens. But yeah, get them into a position where they are actively making decisions and reviewing and reflecting on what actually happens afterwards. Again, this is all about building connection, building trust, because that's the foundation of great leadership, is that trust and respect and that connection. So actions from this point of view, start to practice that active listening. So when people are asking you questions, come back to them, repeat what they're telling you, give them the free rein to explore what they're thinking, and to you to spend more time with your people. Again, make them think for themselves, ask the questions, get them to consider what they're doing, whether it's right, what the outcome could be. And again, think about how we deal with people. Are we responding to that initial, again, emotional boom, like someone says something to you or there's an issue and then we respond with our emotions? Or are we taking some time? Again, active listening allows you to do this much better. Actually think through how we're going to respond and react rather than reacting is where I'm going with that one, because reaction is just that. It's an emotional reaction. And again, start to build some regular check-ins with your people. Weekly one-to-ones, doesn't have to be anything overly formal, just how you're getting on, what do you need. From a mental health perspective, these are really important. Certainly, again, this wasn't in hospitality because you've got to be really intentional in hospitality to do this. But in my previous roles where we actually set aside time to, weekly, same time every week, after 6, 7, 8 weeks, you start to then begin different conversations happen. So are they struggling with something outside the workplace that could be impacting? And this is where it's really powerful. Allows us as leaders to help those people, not only with their work life, but also things that are going on, and support them with things that are going on outside. Hospitality has got there's no secret, there is a mental health issue. There's almost a crisis with that as well. And on an individual business level, we need to start doing more for our people and to deliver on what we, as employers, we have a duty of care, and this is about delivering on that point. Again, hospitality is different. We need to be really intentional, maybe outside of shift times, maybe think about extended breaks so people can have a break that's maybe twice as long and we can have a very quick check-in, and then that flows into their break, gives them time to reflect, etc. So that's another thing to maybe think about for your business. So really that is what, the fundamental elements, the very surface elements and of how you can attract and retain people. If you've got any questions, just drop them in the chat, or even if you're listening to this afterwards, drop me an email, andy@thecafehustle.com, because maybe there are some questions from this. I must say that if you're in the chat, or if you're listening on a desktop, that's the only place you can get into the chat. But if you have got any questions, drop something in there now. And again, if there's something in the future, please drop me an email at andy@thecafehustle.com. Again, it's all about having those conversations around how we can make our lives better as leaders, but also how we can make our people's lives better. Something, again, from a leadership point of view, we have so much power, we have so much influence. The reality is we can change people's lives, and just by doing these little things, people become happier in the workplace. They're happier when they're not in the workplace. So really great to be able to bring some of this. Again, this is the first of a series of 3 that we're going to be doing to really dig into how we can help people lead our industry better and have more of a focus on the people. Now, if anyone, I'm going to leave it a couple of more minutes in the chat, so if there is anything, drop something in there now and I can get it answered. Failing that, again, drop me that email, get over on Instagram, Facebook, anywhere, reach out to me and I'll get that answered, or even to connect. I'm looking forward to seeing you and engaging with you. But again, thank you very much for joining me on this little webinar. It's now 45 minutes of a webinar. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to hopefully welcoming you onto the podcast. Make sure you listen to that as well. So yeah, so that's all for today. Nothing in the chat at the minute. So yeah, thank you very much for joining me, and look out for the next webinar.